The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, missing children who seemingly vanished. They've never been found, but for many, the search never ends. Here's the story. When a child disappears while last in the care of a parent, the first hours unravel in confusion. Officers arrive, ask questions, retrace steps. But when the story doesn't add up and evidence is thin, the investigation stalls. That's when the community surges forward. Neighbors organize search grids before the sun rises. Strangers print flyers, comb through parks, drive rural roads with headlights cutting through the dark. On social media, the child's photo spreads like wildfire, thousands of shares in minutes. True crime creators dissect timelines, zoom in on details, and beg viewers to pay attention. And suddenly, that small local case becomes a national pulse. And when law enforcement hits a wall, the public refuses to let the child fade into silence, as the search for that child never ends. This hour, we are focusing on missing children. Children who have not been found. Children who should be safe at home, but they're not. Some of these children last in the care of their own parents. We're going to go through 4 different cases. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, going to help us all night. Cody, let's begin with the first child, Melody Buzzard.
Yeah, Vinny.
What do we know about Melody?
9-year-old girl, Vinny, been missing for more than 40 days since October 10th. Now, of course, we know she comes from a single mother household with her mother, Ashley Buzzard, that we've seen in the news. Her father died when she was a very young age. But her and her mom, Ashley Buzzard, took off on this multi-day, multi-state trip from California to Nebraska between October 7th and October 10th. And her mom returned home with no Melody on the 10th. In that rental car, we're looking at pictures right now on the screen. That's little Melody right there. Police believe she was disguised when they were at this rental car agency. They went out on this trip after they rented the car. Ashley returned back without her daughter. And Vinny, this is the kicker of the whole thing. She's not cooperating with police. This is her daughter that's missing and not cooperating with police. Just very bizarre.
Absolutely. And when was the last time that Melody was seen?
Well, Vinny, we know that investigators have told us that they have narrowed down this 24-hour window on the return trip. So they were gone from the 7th to the 10th of October, the return trip from Colorado to Lompoc, California. Now, we have a map of the possible trip that could have been taken, according to investigators. Now, we know that investigators say someone saw Ashley in Colorado, close to the Utah border. Now, we've pointed out Grand Junction on the map there, although investigators haven't said exactly where she was spotted, but it's believed that she drove west on I-70, but she may have diverted south at one point onto Route 89, going through some small towns, including Junction, Utah. Not to be confused with Grand Junction, Colorado, Junction, Utah. She then may have gotten back on I-70 and continued on, going through St. George, Utah, Vinny, Las Vegas, Nevada, and then on into California. But still nothing super exact from investigators as of right now, Vinny.
And when you say they're focusing on the last 24 hours, that would put like October 9th as approximately the last time that she was seen. Okay, what's the current status of this investigation?
So it is, of course, still active. It's still very much so ongoing. We do know Ashley Buzzard, the mother in this case, was arrested on some false imprisonment charges. She's since bailed out under supervision. But Vinny, the man who was accusing her of these of the charges of false imprisonment, this man named Tyler Brewer, he joined News Nation's Bainfield and said Ashley told him where she left Melody. Take a load of this. Take a listen to this.
She ended up going on a road trip at the instructions of individuals that she barely even knows, and I question if she even knows them really at all, in efforts to drop Melody off with them. Apparently, some location in Utah. She had said that it was a couple that she met at a zoo, but she doesn't know these people's names, their address, their phone number, their location, nothing. It's bizarre and makes no sense.
Bizarre and makes no sense. That's a perfect way to put it there, Vinny. And also to note, the false imprisonment charges that she was charged with in this arrest have since been dropped. But I reached out to authorities today for an update. I did not get a reply, but their most recent press release does confirm that this investigation is still, of course, ongoing.
And those statements from Tyler Brewer, really, really interesting and all that, because she's not cooperating. This is the only statement we know that she has allegedly made about where Melody is. All right, Cody's going to stick around all night. Let's get to the first question in our investigation. It's the only question that matters, right? Where is Melody Buzzard? Let's bring in our guest here to help us tonight answer this question. Missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. He's also a search and rescue pilot and ground search technician, along with Tony Bruschi, host of the true crime podcast Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Great to have you both here. All right, Steve, first your reaction to this statement that Tyler Brewer says that Melody made, that there was ran into a couple at a zoo, continued some sort of communications, goes on this wild trip trying to coordinate when to drop Melody off, because I think the other part of the story is that Melody's having some sort of surgical procedure. So I don't know if this was supposed to be a babysitter situation or something. But what are your thoughts about that story?
Well, you know, last time I discussed the case with you, I talked about that maybe there was a situation where Ashley found somebody that is suffering from the same type of mental illness and have the same beliefs about, you know, Melody being taken and won't be given back and whatnot. Maybe she found somebody online and maybe that's what the situation is, because that Tyler also discussed how it was the person who was receiving Melody that was the one that kept changing the pickup locations, and that's why they went to these different states like Nebraska or wherever it was. So, you know, maybe that's what this is, and now you got somebody else with the same mental health issues that's got her, and hopefully, you know, she's safe, and they just have this warped perception of you know, what's happening, what they think is happening, but isn't really happening.
Right, and Steve, what we're talking about here is like a bizarre scenario, but it would be best case scenario in light of everything that's happened here.
I mean, we literally got to hope that this is the scenario that, and the thing is Melody probably does not know the difference. This is probably the reality she's grown up in. So this probably is not that bizarre to her, sadly.
Tony, what are your thoughts? Where is Melody Buzzard? Do you think there may be something to this wild story?
Well, I hope the answer to it is that she's not just living in Ashley's head anymore. I hope that there may be this bizarro best case scenario that she met this couple at this zoo and she doesn't know who they are, where they live, any sort of contact information, and dropped her off in Utah with them or wherever state they decided to land onto. But I really fear that may not be the case. And the reason for that also from Tyler Brewer when he was talking to Banfield the other day brought up something very, very disturbing, describing a pillow dressed in Melody's clothes, surrounded by photos torn from missing child posters. This is the stuff out of a horror movie. Sitting on the couch like a shrine, or a creepy 1980s My Buddy doll dragged in from an abandoned department store, along with Buzzard's expired makeup choices. I'm not quite sure. But the fact of what we're dealing with here, and if that wasn't creepy enough, she then made a comment that compared herself to Casey Anthony, saying, well, at least I'm not out partying. That doesn't give me a lot of high hopes, if you will.
Yeah, if you're comparing yourself to someone, that's not who you want to compare yourself to. And we also got to hear her in that recording, and I got to hear her speak. And Tony, what was your reaction to that? We played it the other night, and I was shocked at how not completely bonkers she sounded in it, right? And again, I don't know what her baseline is, but she sounded almost normal.
Well, and sometimes the scariest, most dangerous people sound like that. They don't always necessarily sound like what we think of in movies or what we think of as, quote, a crazy person, unquote. They do sound normal. They're able to pass themselves off as normal, as healthy individuals long enough that they're able to keep custody of the child. This is not the first time that she hasn't had Melody in her custody. Other times she's been taken away. This time seems to be very different. But that's the problem with that. As long as they can pass it off, the rules, the laws that exist to protect Ashley from anyone digging further are pretty strict. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now, and that she is not behind bars and her child is missing, and there's all these crazy stories surrounding her.
Steve, if you were on the ground right now, where would you go to look?
I'll tell you, there's a part of the trip that really interests me, which is after she goes through Junction, which deviates on the 89. She goes south down to Panguitch, but then reverses course and goes back up to, I believe, the 20 and cuts back over to the 70. It's the only part of the trip that I see where she actually went somewhere and then reversed course and cut back over to a major interstate. I think something happened in that Panguitch area because she could have kept going straight and taken one of the other small the roads over to the 70, but she reversed course there, and I think that's an interesting little hitch. It's the only one that I see in the trip.
Yeah. Tony, are you confident that investigators would follow up on what Tyler Brewer told them much earlier than telling the world?
I would hope so. There's a lot to unpack there. So it's going to take manpower. It's going to take time. It's going to take resources. The thing that stood out to me was the bizarre story about the zoo, that she met these people there, somehow later on got back in contact, and then they were changing their meeting location to all these different spots around the country. Certainly, I would be obviously looking at any of those places along that path, but now the word zoo has entered the equation. I would be getting in contact with any zoo along that path, looking for security cameras, looking for anything that may appear to be Melody taking her daughter to a zoo, because it's probably not as black and white as Ashley is describing it, if in fact they ever met somebody at a zoo to begin with. But I think that might be another point to explore, since that's been thrown into the equation.
Tony Bruschi, Steve Fisher, sticking around. Coming up next, where is Emmanuel Haro?
My heart dropped because I was like, finally he's found, but then the feelings went away after finding out that the baby was not found. I kind of feel like he's just giving them the runaround.
The Court TV podcast will return.
I just ask you guys if you could help us, Please. This is what he looks like. He's just a baby. Just give our son back, please.
Give me a break. That's Jake Haro. Oh, please help, please help. Yeah, he pleaded guilty to murdering that baby, but that baby still has not been found. That child is still missing. And every child deserves to be found. Let's get to our next missing child. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas back with us. Cody, let's talk about Emmanuel Haro. So young, so cute, so vulnerable. What do we know about Emmanuel?
So young, Vinny. Only 7 months old, born to his parents there, Jake and Rebecca Haro. They initially told police that video that they were talking in just now, they told police that Emmanuel was abducted during an attack in a parking lot by a man that walked up to Rebecca and just simply said, "Hola," knocked Rebecca out, and then abducted the infant. Take a listen to this.
We come to you guys asking you to help us find our son. He was abducted last night from Big 5. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper. And We just ask if anybody knows anything to please contact Ukaipa Police Department.
Don't hesitate, just call.
His name's Emmanuel. He's 7 months. He's 7 months old.
So, Vinny, we now know that was a lie. We know that prosecutors believe that baby Emanuel is now deceased, probably likely due to repeated abuse by his parents. And again, how do we know that's a lie? Because as you mentioned, Jake Haro eventually pled guilty to murdering his 7-month-old son and is currently now serving a 25 to life sentence behind bars for that crime.
Let's get into the timeline a little bit. When was Emmanuel Haro last seen?
He was last seen August of 2025, Vinny. That's when they say, well, the false accusation that they were attacked in the parking lot. Now, there have been multiple searches carried out by police. They even had a search here. You see it on your screen. They had Jake Haro out there one day, obviously to no avail. Now, they're still searching for the child's remains. But since August of 2025, Vinny, a few months, still have not found the remains of this baby, even though Jake Haro has pled guilty to the murder, is behind bars, has not spoken to police or told them anything about where the remains may be.
And the status of that investigation, that search?
So, of course, you know, they're still searching for the remains. Jake behind bars. Rebecca Haro still sticking to her not guilty plea. She's trying to take this to trial. She has a court date coming up January of 2026. Now, I reached out to authorities today. They referred me to their most recent press release from early November, again, just stating that those remains still have yet to be found. The search is still ongoing.
All right, thanks, Cody. Let's get to the next question in our investigation, which is, where is Emmanuel Haro? That beautiful little boy. Still with us to help with our investigation, missing persons, private investigator Steve Fisher, along with podcaster Tony Bruschi. What are your thoughts here, Steve, about where Emmanuel Haro is? Like, there's this huge search. Jake Haro is there. I've got to believe that they were searching that area for a reason. I don't know the reason, but what are your thoughts?
Oh, I hate those two parents so much. You know, it's a tough one. I'll tell you, I searched for Emmanuel in the early days, and I don't know why Jake brought them out there. I wish there was more clarity on that. I've heard through search and rescue circles that they believe that he's in a landfill, and you know what? I don't care if he's in a landfill. There needs to be, and there should have been a large effort put in, even if the chances were 1% of finding him. This is 7-month-old that was neglected his entire life, and we owed that to him. And I'll say I'm really disappointed in my fellow, search and rescue teams. I know that they don't have the ability to self-deploy and call out, but there needed to be a bigger effort than there has been. There was this search, and there was one other small search, and the landfill should have been searched. They should have been shut down. Warrants should have been issued, like we've seen in so many other cases, but they weren't, and because they got Jake to plead, and they seemed way more interested in that than they did finding Emmanuel, and that's not what the people wanted. This was the people of the state of California versus Jake and Rebecca, and this is not what the people wanted. The people want Emmanuel, and they want them in prison.
Absolutely. So well said. Tony Bruschi, your thoughts here, because we've seen cases like Quentin Simon down in Georgia. They went to that landfill, and they were able to make a recovery there. I mean, it can be done. It's a matter of putting the resources and making the effort. What are your thoughts?
It truly is. The scary part is time is not on any one side, and there's a lot of time that has passed now. So whether he ended up in that landfill or somewhere in the desert, time not playing well for the odds of finding the remains of Emmanuel at this point. But I think really, where is he? He's a bargaining chip. That's what he is right now. Jake took his plea, admitted to killing his own baby, still refused to say where Emmanuel is. That tells you he thinks he couldn't really get anything for admitting where he was. But Rebecca, And I'm wondering if there was some behind-the-scenes agreement between the two. She's still waiting for that trial. And let's be honest, the only leverage she has left is Emmanuel's location. Nothing else in her story holds up, not the timeline, not the attack, not the interviews that she's walked out of. So it looks like she's keeping the truth in her back pocket as a bargaining chip. So I think, metaphorically, that's where baby Emanuel lives today.
Yeah, and I think the only thing you could save Rebecca is if everything gets put onto Jake somehow, Steve, and I think the only way a jury would be convinced, potentially, and they may not be convinced by it, is if Jake Haro himself comes into court and says, yeah, I beat her up, and I beat the baby up, and I'm the one responsible for all of this. I think that's the only way she has a shot here.
I kind of have a different view than a lot of people. I think that this might have actually been more at the hands of her than him because they filed an amended complaint on Jake and reduced it to second degree, and she's still charged with first degree murder. And they're so far haven't seen any offer of a deal. But listen. They know, they got to give this up. I mean, I do believe Jake knows. And the thing is, I believe that the prosecutors know too. They said in the initial press conference, we have a very good idea where we think Emmanuel is. And I think that that's the landfill. I think even if it's symbolic, there should have been a massive effort for the 7-year-old. And I'm disappointed in that. But I do think there's something going on because Rebecca's charges are a higher degree than Jake's.
Yeah, that's so true. Tony Bruschi, great to see you. Thank you so much. Steve's going to stick around. Still to come, where is Summer Wells?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of missing children who seemingly vanished. Information from law enforcement is scarce, but the public is invested in finding the answers. Here's the story. A missing child alert ripples across the town and everything changes. Police admit they need help. No witnesses, no clear direction, and a parent's inconsistent account. The community doesn't wait. Volunteers gather at churches and school gyms, signing maps, checking terrain, forming search teams. Mothers who never met the family bake food for the searchers. Teenagers live stream updates, pushing the story beyond the town limits. Podcasters pick it up within hours, analyzing the last known moments, urging listeners to look, to share, to refuse complacency. Within a day, millions online know the child's name. Every drone launched, every TikTok viewed, every tip phoned in becomes part of a collective promise. We will not stop looking. We will not let this child be forgotten. All hour, we've been taking a look at missing children, and we continue that with the next child. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Let's talk about one that touched the hearts of a lot of people, and it's a mystery that seems like it should have been solved years ago. Summer Wells. What do we know about this young girl?
Well, Vinnie, just 5 years old, up in Tennessee, went missing in her own home. Now, they say that she was outside helping her mom and grandma in the garden, helping them plant flowers. She got done with that, wanted to go back inside and play with toys. Mom and grandma came in. Summer was nowhere to be found, which is just scary to even think about something like that. But Vinnie, we've constructed a timeline of from June 15th of 2021 to June 14th of 2024. Now, June 15th is when she was reported missing. So we can walk through that timeline here right now. June 15th, Summer Wells was reported missing around 6:30 p.m., last seen outside her home. June 17th, 2021, the search expands to cover a 1-mile radius surrounding Summer's home. June 26th, 2021, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation looks for a red Toyota pickup seen in an area near where Summer disappeared. July 26, 2021, a month later, Summer's brothers are removed from the home by the Department of Children's Services. October 31st, 2021, Don Wells, that is Summer's father, he's arrested for driving under the influence. February 4th, 2022, Summer's 6th birthday. February 4th, 2023, Summer's 7th birthday. June 14th, 2023, the TBI releases these age-progressed photos of Summer Wells, what she would look like at the current time. February 4th, 2024, Summer's 8th birthday, and June 14th, 2024, the TBI releases a video update in Summer Wells' case. But Vinnie, to no avail, there is still no sign of this baby girl, of her remains, or anywhere of her whereabouts.
So we talk about location. I know a big part of this story was the home. That's the place where she was last seen. What do we know about the home?
So Vinnie, last seen June 15th, 2021, and a friend of the network, Chris McDonough, who we've had on the program several times, actually did a walkthrough in the home alongside Summer's mother. Take a look at this.
Them three were sitting right here in front with their eyes glued to the TV, like always. And I said, boys, where's your sister at? Well, she just went downstairs, Mom, to play. So I went over here like this, because this is where the stairs are.
Okay.
It's actually down under there.
Oh, down into her bedroom.
Our bedroom, and then hers is on the other side.
Oh, okay, in the basement.
Yeah, in the basement.
Well, this makes sense now, see?
And then I yelled, and I said, Summer, Summer. And she didn't, I listened for a minute, I didn't hear nothing. So I went like this. This is how I would get down here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to come down here or not.
Do I got to be tiny to get in there?
No, you should.
Can we come in from the other side?
Well, we can, but it'd make more sense if you went this way.
Okay, I'll follow you. Oh, man. Good grief,
No,
girl.
if my 6-foot husband can fit down here, you can.
Huh?
My husband's 6 foot. I know if he can fit, you can.
This. Oh, my gosh. Way to go.
This is my husband's room.
Okay.
And over here, well, it's a mess again.
That's all right.
But this is where Summer and little Waylon was, because Waylon's only 9.
Okay.
And they stayed down here. And these are all her toys, all her Paw Patrols. I searched, I looked up underneath the beds under there. We can't really get on. I can't get under there.
Yeah.
But I looked under there, looked under every blanket I could possibly look under.
Yep.
And then I come over here, and I looked on both sides and see underwear. And I don't recall if this was locked or not. I don't recall that.
Okay.
But I know, it's hard on me. But I know I did come out there and I said, Summer, because sometimes she'll sit right here and just sit here and play just for, And usually when she comes out and she goes directly that way up to the swing.
Oh, okay, so this is like her.
Yeah, she just
walks. Come running out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can see the path
Just
here.
go right to the swing.
Right, you can see where she could have run.
So Vinnie, that gives us a little insight into the structure of the home. And actually there towards the end, we see that it's kind of a rural area. There's plenty of woods out there. They are still unsure whether Summer wandered off, whether someone abducted her, but that gives us a little sneak peek into what the area may or actually did look like.
Yeah, and she goes into the house, there's a way to get out of the house without people in the front seeing her. Now, what's the current status of the investigation?
Well, Vinnie, police say they are still fervently following leads. This investigation, this search is still ongoing, really as recent as a few weeks ago. And Vinnie, we also have pictures. I mentioned those age-progressed pictures released by the TBI. This is what they created here. Of course, that's a real picture of Summer on the left, but on the right is what she may look like now. She'd be around 9 years old, 8 to 9 years old. Just for anyone who may have seen her, may know where she is, where her whereabouts are. This is what the point of putting this picture out was, because no one's seen her in 4 years. This is just what she may look like. But again, police are still very, very much so involved in the search, involved in the investigation to figure out where she may be.
All right, thanks so much, Cody. Brings us to the next question in our investigation about this young girl. Where is Summer Wells? Let's bring in our guest here to help answer the question. You know who we're bringing in, right? Former homicide detective Chris McDonough, who walked through that house, spent a lot of time on the story. He's also the host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Been investigating this case for years. And also joining us, Pascal, the host of The Pascal Show, has also been following this story as well. All right, Chris, I'll begin with you. What are your thoughts about where is Summer Wells?
Vinnie, that is the million-dollar question, right? However, statistically, if we go by what we call the victim risk continuum, everything points towards a very low-risk victim here, meaning the last time she was seen was by her mother being escorted into the house, and then, of course, she just vanishes. And it was interesting when I did go into that house and you see it there, that is not necessarily, they call it a bedroom, but I got to be honest with you, Vinnie, that's a dungeon. And I had a really hard time believing that a 5-year-old little girl just arbitrarily would go down there to play. And the most interesting thing that jumped out at me almost immediately is Mom has told various different stories. One, that the door was locked. Both the parents have said that. And then in this particular video, she made it a point to point out to me that the door was open, which gave now an opportunity for various types of scenarios.
Yeah. Pascal, your thoughts on this story, which is baffling, right? It seems like this is one that should have been solved at some point, but it hasn't. It's still lingering.
Yeah, this is a very interesting case. I mean, obviously, we're just seeing, honestly, nothing except for just theories, possibilities, but it just bothers me, like what just Chris just said a second ago, how easily someone could run out through the back, go through that door in the basement or through that house or through the bedroom and easily have access to her or anybody else that may have been in that basement. So yeah, there's just so many questions that haven't been answered. And honestly, the more questions we got, the more speculations get out here. It'd be nice to hear something from local law enforcement so we can get some idea of where they're getting to, if they're even getting closer to bringing her home.
Yeah, and the thing about these stories, Pascal, is that the public wanting answers and wanting information, it doesn't really wane, right? It's like, I understand cases can go cold, trails can go cold, but people don't forget. And this is one of those stories where no one has forgotten Summer Wells.
No, they don't. And what's so sad about this is Idle Minds is like the conspirators' plaything, is what I'd like to say. It only leaves more and more conspiracies out there, more and more rumors, more and more speculations, and not a whole lot of facts, especially when we don't have enough out here. Obviously, we all want to know where she is, but it'd be nice to get a few more, just a little bit more information from local PD, just some more facts.
And Chris, how about the family these days? Are they keeping a much lower profile than they did initially? Because I know you spent time there. You spoke with everyone.
Yeah, no, in fact, I talked to the family today, Don's sister, actually, and she told me that Don and Candace have both gone underground, that they've even been trying to get hold of him. TBI's even been trying to get hold of him, and she told me that that's been a difficult task. So why that's occurring, I don't have that answer. But, the fact that if this was a stranger abduction, Vinny, and Pascal would know, obviously, is the feds would be heavily involved in this right away, the CARB team, which they were, but then they left. And if this is any indication of something else going on, that means she's not moving across the, state lines or anything like that, because that's when they really jump into this and they weigh in the resources. But most recently, there was a search, about 0.8 of a mile or 9 miles away from her house, and the evidence team was there, not the CARB team. So that may also lean us into, something else going on here. Somebody had to have access to that property. This kid just didn't disappear from that basement randomly by a stranger.
All right. We're going to stay on that story. Obviously, anything develops. Pascal, thanks so much. Great to see you. Have a great Thanksgiving. Make sure you check out the Pascal Show on YouTube. It's amazing. Coming up next, where is Sebastian Rogers?
There is no evidence to support foul play is involved in the disappearance of Sebastian.
But at this point, you don't rule it out?
We're not ruling anything out.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
not part of the investigation, and they don't have to let me know anything, which they don't let me know anything. I'm in law enforcement myself, so I've got to trust the procedure.
That's Seth Rogers, Sebastian Rogers' father, who appeared here on Court TV with me, talking about his missing son and working with law enforcement in that case. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, let's talk about Sebastian Rogers. What do we know about Sebastian?
Well, Vinny, he's a teen with autism who went missing from his mother's home in February of 2024. Now, his mother said they went to bed normally that night. Everything was simple. Everything was normal. They went to bed. She woke up to wake him up to go to school the next morning around 6 a.m. There was no sign of Sebastian. Now, of course, like we just watched, his father joined us here on the network saying that he doesn't believe his son would just up and leave. Take a listen.
It doesn't seem like my son at all. He would never leave my house in the middle of the night barefoot, and if he did, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. You know, we've left in the middle of the night. There's been times that we've gone fishing in the middle of the night. You know, we plan that sort of stuff. But him walking out the door in the middle of the night, no. It's not something he would do. It's something he's never done on me.
Now, Vinny, Sebastian's mother also spoke about this situation on the Chronicles of Olivia YouTube channel. Take a listen to what she had to say.
He said, all right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. Love you. And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise and I was like, I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. And about midnight, I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he wasn't here.
And Vinny, just a sad, tragic situation overall, just because it's so unclear. You go to bed one night and then a couple hours later you wake up and your son's not there. You can only imagine how that must feel.
Okay, so when was the last time that Sebastian Rogers was seen?
Well, he was last seen February 26th of 2024 on Stafford Court in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And Vinny, we have video of him and his mother at a restaurant on February 25th, the evening of the 25th. So this would be really just a few hours before she went to wake him up to go to school and that she noticed that he was missing. So it's been, quite some time. There's still, developments coming out in this story. He has not been found, but we're looking right here, just a few hours before he was reported missing by his mother.
And what is the current status of the investigation? Because this goes all the way back, as you said, back to 2024.
Yeah, Vinny, that Amber Alert is still very active. Police stress that this investigation is still very much so active. Even the FBI is offering $50,000 for any information regarding his whereabouts, Vinny. And his mother also has gone on record advising that if he is seen, if he is alive somewhere and someone sees him, to not approach him because his responses are a little bit different than other children. She says to just monitor him and simply call the police.
All right, Cody Thomas, appreciate all the work tonight. Thanks so much. And that brings us to the final question in our investigation for this hour, which is, where is Sebastian Rogers? Question we've been asking for quite some time. Still here helping us with our investigation, former homicide detective Chris McDonough, host of the Interview Room with Chris McDonough, along with Steve Fisher, who has been the private investigator hired by Sebastian's mother and stepfather. All right, Steve, I'll begin with you. This is like Gone Without a Trace.
Yeah, it is. It's a really confusing case, but and it's just there's a lot of misinformation out there. I'll tell you that at the beginning of the year we released where we found surveillance from a house 1 street over at 12:17 a.m. on the 26th, which would have been an hour and a half, 2 hours after he was heard in the bedroom. That person, as far as we know, is not accounted for. That is right along where the construction area is. And we think that there's a chance that that was him. And then going into the construction area, I will tell you that at 8:30 a.m. the next morning, when the canines got on scene, a tracking canine came through another backyard and literally started running, and the handlers started jogging and went right to the exact spot where that surveillance image was taken.
And it gives us just a little more information about that. What does the surveillance image show, and what story does it tell you?
So it's very hard to see. You have to enhance it, but it's a shadowy figure on Kellen Lane, which is one street over, which is where it's believed that he went and entered the construction zone. This is not that. This is a different one that the FBI has come out and said that is not of any relevance. You know, it's one thing I also want to say is there's been very little news. Obviously, law enforcement is not talking about this case, and that has a lot to do with because this fake intelligence agency has come in and it kind of stirred things up. But I can promise you, there is still real efforts going on. Not long ago, we held a very precise, targeted search with forensic professionals, along with federal authorities alongside of them, and they were with us, and some of this was on federal property. So there are things going on. We're just not talking about it regularly just because of how polarized the whole thing has become.
Well, it absolutely has. Chris McDonough, your thoughts about where Sebastian Rogers is?
You know, this case was set into motion within the first 2 hours when the first officer was on the scene. And the first question that was going to be asked, obviously, is this an abduction risk and or a walk away? It's not unusual for autistic children to walk out of the house without their shoes. There have been many cases where kids have done that, and they've been found 8, 10, 15 miles away. But now we're into 640 days approximately. And one of the biggest questions I've had is, in his autism, what's his medication package? And if he's on medication and he's with somebody, then the pharmacies are going to be a very big clue here. Because if those medications have not been re-upped and prescribed correctly, i.e. gotten refills, this child potentially could be deceased somewhere. And the search and rescue efforts then would become the primary focus in relationship to around the area that they're in.
We are out of time for tonight, but big thank you. Steve Fisher, Chris McDonough, really appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. We can debate every day about what information should be made public in the cases of missing children. I understand law enforcement has a dual role. They're tasked with finding the child, but at the same time, they're also building a case if a crime has been committed. And sometimes that second part slows down the first part. I get it. I just don't agree with it. I believe the best way to find a missing child is to let the public help. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.